الله أكبر الله أكبر.
There's companions of the Prophet in Europe. I went out of my way to make sure that there was an equal number of female voices in here. The narrative is so powerful. This part of Europe, which is called quote unquote Eastern Europe, has been so othered. For me, the south of Thailand is just spectacular as a Muslim. Europe's Jewish communities for 12 centuries felt the safest in Muslim land.
Welcome to the East London Mosque podcast. I'm your host, Salman Farsi. Today, we have award-winning journalist, travel writer, and author Tharik Hussain with us. We're here to talk about your new book, Ramadan Mubarak. But before we go into that, I have some quick fire questions to warm you up. Out of all your travels, you've been to many places around the world. What's your most favorite place?
It's probably the south of Thailand.
Really?
You know, because normally people think, when they think of Thailand, they think of the magnificent beaches, maybe even the hedonism if you're a non-Muslim. But for me, the south of Thailand is just spectacular as a Muslim and a Bangladeshi. You see, the south of Thailand is where the Muslim majority states are. You know, and you've got this wonderful Malay Thai Muslim culture, which actually has a lot in common with Bangladeshi culture. Firstly, they love dried fish. Right. We love dried fish. You know, most Thai dishes have this kind of dried fish, fermented fish essence. When you go around and you see the way in which the men dress, they wear longis like our men do. You know, they wear fatwas like we do. They wear the same hat. And you know, when I was traveling through there, I even came across these old grannies that look like my own nanny, sitting there like mincing, you know, pan and guar, ready to chew on the betel nut. So I just felt like, you know, these were my kindred spirits. Okay. And of course, Thailand is just such a lovely, pleasant place anyway. But also, more importantly, I should say, is that this community is often very badly misrepresented. You know, when you look at literature on Thailand, especially travel literature, the Muslim culture of the country is often dismissed as being nothing more than a bunch of insurgents because of the issues the communities had with the authorities. And that is an absolute nonsense when you visit through and travel through this wonderful region.
Okay. When you're not working, how do you like to spend your time?
When I'm not working, well, I've got two young girls again. So obviously they keep me very, very busy. And, you know, I also love to read a lot, naturally. But at the moment, I'm finding most of my reading is connected to work. And I like to play sports as well. Okay. You know, I love football, as many of your listeners will know that are from the East End of London. Yeah. I've always enjoyed playing football. And I, to be honest, I like to spend a lot of time with my family, including my parents, you know, and my brothers and sisters and their families.
Lovely. What's your hidden talent? Writing doesn't count.
Okay. So I guess it's not very hidden for some of our local listeners, but I was pretty handy at football. Back in the day, and actually played quite seriously to a semi-professional level. Oh wow! Not
for any clubs?
Not the major heights. I mean, obviously we have the local Bangladeshi semi-professional club that I played for, Sporting Bengal, but I also played for a few others, Barkingside, Stansted, and even had a little go in the FA Cup on occasion as well. But at the kind of very early level, before the season even starts, kind of thing. But yeah, that would probably be my hidden talent. Yes.
Okay. Last quick fire question: biryani or cake?
Oh, biryani all the time.
Really?
All day long.
Good choice. Good choice.
Absolutely. I'm a savoury guy.
True Bengali through and through. Okay. Well, thanks for that. Let's talk a bit about your journey as an author and kind of what kind of inspired you to explore our kind of Muslim cultures and traditions through writing. Like, where did it all start?
I mean, it all started in libraries. You know, when we were young, as you know, we came from backgrounds where our parents weren't in a position to buy us lots of books and lots of literature. But my father was very, you know, he was very encouraging of reading and literature. So we would spend a lot of time in the libraries. And I used to read books like one of the ones that inevitably had an impact on me was, of course, Tintin. You know, the roving boy reporter who would run off across the globe and have these adventures and was supposed to write about them afterwards. And I guess I always kind of wanted to do something like that, even as a child. But I knew I wanted to write because I enjoyed writing from an early age, even whether it was in primary school doing assignments or later in secondary school. And so it was when I became a journalist that I really started to appreciate the power of words and the impact it can have. I became a journalist around the corner when a newspaper that some of your older listeners will remember, East and I, used to be across the road from here. And I came and covered the opening of the LMC when the first brick was laid by the Saudi prince and now our King Charles. And from there, I knew that I wanted to write, and I knew I wanted to use my talent for writing to try and affect the way people thought. But I didn't know what it was. And in the beginning, I was doing things like writing about, Asians in football and things like that, which was obviously close to my heart at the time. And then when I headed off to Saudi Arabia, because after things like 9/11 and 7/7, I decided maybe I should look at living abroad. On the trip, that was essentially the recce to go and see what Saudi Arabia was like, because obviously back then you could only go for Umrah or Hajj. You couldn't really go as a tourist. So we were going for Umrah, but really we were kind of trying to suss out what it's like over there. And we had family come and smuggle us out of Makkah to go and see Jeddah, where we were going to live. En route, we bought a very cheap flight with Cyprus Air, which I think doesn't even function anymore. But it was so cheap that we had to spend 9 hours in a place called Larnaca in Cyprus. And while we were there, I thought, we've got to do something. This was before the internet was any good, and I looked up some bits and pieces in a book, and it said there was a mosque on Salt Lakes nearby. I thought, perfect. Nice day out, go and see. And it sounded awfully romantic, this beautiful mosque overlooking Salt Lakes. And then we got there, the Salt Lakes were dry, it wasn't very beautiful as well, and the mosque looked dilapidated and decrepit.
Wow.
But the gentleman the elderly man who was looking after the mosque handed me a leaflet, a booklet, which I still have. And I never really paid much attention until many, many moons later. I looked at that booklet, and it turns out this mosque is the site where they believe an actual aunt of the Prophet ﷺ is buried.
Amazing.
And so I found myself asking, what? Wait. There's companions of the Prophet in Europe?
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to believe that Muslims don't belong here? And it kind of started this journey of traveling to places across Europe.
I mean, I guess
that was the spark.
That brings us on to your book, Minarets in the Mountains. You've had the pleasure of launching it here at the East London Mosque and London Muslim Centre. It's been, it's been widely recognised. It won the 22 British Guild of Travel Writers award. What was the most unexpected discovery you made while journeying through Europe and kind of learning about Europe's Muslim heritage? For me, it's like so profound. Like, what Muslim heritage in Europe?
Absolutely. I think I would argue it wasn't what I discovered. It's what I realized was right in front of me. But because of the power of the narrative, none of us had seen it. The narrative is so powerful. This part of Europe, which is called quote unquote Eastern Europe, has been so othered and separated from what we call Europe proper. In other words, Western Europe. That when somebody says, like I do in my talks, there are 3 Muslim countries in Europe, people are like, what are you talking about? That can't be true. And then I point out that Bosnia, Albania, Kosovo are over 50% Muslim and therefore can be categorized as Muslim. They're like, oh, yeah, of course. But they're in Eastern Europe. It's things like that. It's more the recognition of this heritage and coming across this wonderful heritage across this space, and then realizing actually it's always been known, but it's just not a part of our mainstream understanding. And so some of the intangible heritage, for example, that really blew my mind is kind of going over there and learning the story, for example, of how when the Jews of Al-Andalus were kicked out in 1492 because of the Alhambra decree, as most people know, what a lot of people don't realize is that Sultan Bayezid II, the Ottoman Sultan at the time, sent his entire naval fleet to collect these refugees. And because they were Ahl al-Kitab, as well as maybe commercial reasons as well. But it was ultimately a humanitarian decision. And what he then did is he took them and he repopulated them through Ottoman lands, including the Balkans. And, I knew this history and I knew the Andalusian history, but I never connected the two to make the point that actually Europe's Jewish communities for 12 centuries felt the safest in Muslim lands. And this is not a part of our understanding of European history, it's not a part of our understanding of European Jewish history because we only learn what happened to them in Western Europe because that is Europe proper, you see. And so I felt really kind of frustrated when I was learning these wonderful, tangible, and of course there was beautiful mosques and beautiful Sufi lodges that we came across, and you can see some of these in the book, in the pictures. But I felt very frustrated that a lot of this heritage had so much potential, especially given what we're witnessing right now, that it had been denied to us.
Yeah, I mean, when I traveled to Bosnia to visit Sarajevo, there was some like very heartening stories I heard about, Jews that were protected by the Muslims, there. And it's just some...
And of course, the Sarajevo Haggadah, which is the amazing Jewish manuscript, was rescued twice by a Muslim. In fact, the first Muslim that protected it is this wonderful polymath and Bosnian scholar that we've all forgotten about, called Darwish Korkut.
Okay.
And I ended up going on a tour around the city inadvertently with a a kind of descendant of his. And it's only then I learned the story. And he also ends up saving a Jewish girl, and it is actually recognized by the Jewish community in the wall that they have, where Holocaust rescuers are acknowledged. And there's so many Muslim names there, and a lot of them are from this region.
Amazing. And throughout kind of your journey through the Balkans, what was the kind of the most like significant thing that you saw that was like a turning point in your understanding of Muslim European history?
There were several things. I think, the history that I've just pointed out was very significant because, I feel like it's something that's been kept from us, and I think it has so much potential in this day and age. But also, just realizing that the Balkan history, the Balkan Islamic history, is not just something that we are unfamiliar with, but sadly in a lot of cases, even the people in the Balkans aren't. So often when I'm talking to Albanians, for example, in Albania, for those that are listening that don't know, was declared the very first atheist country in the world because the communist dictator Enver Hoxha wanted to do away with all religion. So to anybody visiting Albania today, it looks like a secular country. There's barely a semblance of Islam left, and yet there are these wonderful, stunning, spectacular, almost fairy tale like towns in the mountains which still have this wealth of Ottoman era houses, in both cases cascading down hills like a fairy tale. And then when you start looking into the history, and of course the thing that allowed me to do this, the main device that I used, of course, was I was following in the footsteps of the great Ottoman traveller Evliya Çelebi. And so Evliya Çelebi had been to these places in the 17th century when it was Muslim Europe and the Ottoman Empire was at its zenith. So I'm visiting these places and thinking how pretty they look. And Evliya Çelebi is telling me these were actually places of Islamic scholarship.
Wow.
And before that, I had no idea that Albania was even embracing its Muslim heritage, let alone once upon a time there were centers of Islamic learning within the country.
Just to kind of touch upon this this notion in Western Europe that there is no kind of Muslim heritage in Europe. Like, what can we do to kind of better create an understanding between Muslims and non-Muslims about this?
I think
history?
the best thing we can do, Salman, is firstly, we need to invest in obviously thorough research into the heritage. First of all, we need to understand it. Even for somebody like me who goes out to try and embrace it and dig it up and whatever else, it's very difficult to access a lot of the heritage, the intangible heritage and the history. That's the first thing. And then on those shoulders, of course, we can then have the people who turn it into popular narratives. And the popular narratives are the most important element of this, because actually a lot of it is in academic work. But it's bridging that. Making it popular normalizes it. Okay? Making it popular normalizes it in the sense that people then no longer say, oh, I didn't know there were Muslim countries in Europe. If everybody's talking about it as a normal thing, then it's not a strange thing. That's for me, that's the most important thing, is creating powerful narratives and making sure that Europe's history is looked upon it in its entirety and not just through the lens of non-Muslim historians.
So in practical terms, what does that mean though? Like, when we, every year, summer holiday, you don't just suddenly sit down and say, hey, I want to go Kosovo. No. Or I want to go Bosnia, right? Even though they are some of the most stunning places on earth. If you see from Sarajevo to Mostar, amazing places. Yet we don't like actively choose to visit. And so, like, how do we overcome that?
More people are, and I don't want to try and take all the credit for this, but clearly my book has inspired a lot of people. I get contacted on social media. Oh, I've got your book, and I can't wait to go and visit Bosnia. And clearly, what it does is because the book is saying to people, there's something there in these places that is yours. Because my book is all about owning this heritage. Obviously, Salman, you and I are both from South Asian ancestry. And sometimes what happens is when we come from those backgrounds, especially with the first generation, and I'm kind of first generation because I was born in Bangladesh. For a lot of us, we were told to look for heritage elsewhere. Okay, we're not told to embrace the heritage on our doorstep. And I think that's changing with this next generation and the generations that will follow. Certainly with my children, but for that to change, we need to also make that heritage visible for them to embrace it. And I think that is something that is starting to shift. Already, we have waves of Muslims heading to Al-Andalus. I mean, I'm using the romantic term there. It's Andalusia, of course. But this is because everybody wants to go and see the Alhambra. Everybody wants to go and see the Mezquita, and most of the time, they'll just go and take loads of pictures, and it'll end up being this wonderful Instagram reel or something. And that's a start. But then what we have to do as the creators or the academics and the intellectuals, we have to give them the knowledge and unveil those histories in a way that they can go to the Alhambra and embrace it for the amazing history it has for us, and not just this picturesque space. Which is what's happening at the moment, sadly. When you go to the Alhambra, there's not a single piece of text to explain the space. You have to either buy the audio guide, or get an actual guide. And even then, those guides are going to give you a narrative predominantly through Western lens. Most places outside of Spain and even in Spain struggle to even call it Islamic. They want to call it a Moorish palace. Now unless you understand the historicity of the term Moorish, a lot of people don't actually even realize that it's Islamic. I was literally there for my next book. I was there in the Alhambra recently, talking with travelers, and I said, "Do you know that Moorish means Muslim?" They're like, "No, I had no idea." This is what's happening.
So it's almost like a cover-up.
Well, it's a de-Islamizing. It's a de-Islamizing. This is a palace that literally has Quran on the walls. So we need to take ownership. We need to firstly embrace this heritage as our own, and then take ownership of it and tell the stories the way it should be told.
So what you're saying is we create a personal connection to that heritage. It's not just going beyond,
how pretty it is.
How pretty it is, and taking a few pictures for social media.
Giving it meaning, to us. Because also, it's not just, I'm not just talking here about, heritage so that we can just celebrate it. There's stuff we can learn from these people, of course. Everyone talks about, the great scholars of Spain and the great, but we're not actually engaging with their scholarship. We're not actually, you'll get the odd TikTok turn up and tell you some guy invented the camera in the 9th century in Spain, and that's it. You have a flash in the pan, and then you're looking at a TikTok about some Premier League footballer. So these things are just coming and going in an instant. And it's probably because nobody's really engaging at a deeper level with it.
So one thing I've never seen is then, like, from our side, we've not created like a serious course on like Muslim heritage and history from
that's right, across Europe. We're not teaching it. Well, our madrasas aren't teaching it. There's British Islamic history, as you know. I work on that stuff as well. We need that. British Islamic history needs to be a part of the curriculum in our madrasas. The Islamic history of Europe needs to be a part of history. Generally needs to be a part of but it's not just a blind spot to non-Muslims. It's also a blind spot for Muslims. You go into the new Islamic gallery in the British Museum, and it was something that was curated in consultation with actual Muslims. And yet, when you look at the map that says the Muslim world, it completely neglects the Balkans.
Wow.
So it's not just a blind spot in the minds of non-Muslims. The narrative has been so effective. That you said yourself, when you first realized there are Muslims out there, you was like, wow, the blind spot is we're susceptible to the blind spot as well.
Okay, let's talk about your new book, Ramadan. A very different to Minarets in the Mountains. It's a short book. It's a gift book. I tried to go on Amazon to buy a copy. I couldn't get a copy. It's sold out. If you just hold it up for our viewers, that's Ramadan Mubarak. It's a gift book. It's a short book. tell us a bit more
So,
about
so
the book.
really, as you rightly pointed out, Salman, it's not what you expect from somebody like me,
Yeah.
and it's more than likely that I probably won't write another one like it. I don't know. It was actually the publisher who approached me, so it wasn't
Okay.
really my idea.
Right,
The,
right.
the publisher Summersdale had recently published a book called "The Best British Travel Writing of the 21st century." Sorry, and they'd included my Hajj diaries as part
Okay.
of that, which of course was about me doing the pilgrimage and the journey, like a bit of travel writing, but of course a piece of religious and spiritual travel writing. And I think it occurred to them that maybe I'd be interested in writing like a little gift book, much more of a commercial thing, let's be
Yeah,
honest,
yeah, yeah.
okay, about Ramadan. And so that when they approached me, I kind of dismissed it out of hand at first. I was like, look, this isn't what I really do.
Yeah.
And then the more I thought about it, because look, earlier I was talking about making things visible, making
Yeah,
things
yeah,
popular.
yeah, yeah.
The more I realized, actually, this is a wonderful opportunity for me to really get across the beauty and essence of Islam through this book. Because for me, on a personal level, the reason we call Ramadan a gift from
Yeah.
Allah, the reason we talk about it as a blessing, is because everything that is magical, everything that is beautiful about Islam is embodied in the spirit of Ramadan.
Absolutely.
And so
yeah.
it occurred to me, actually, if I can get across how I see Ramadan, I'm essentially getting across to people
Yeah.
the absolute beauty,
The
and
essence of the
Islam.
faith, yeah.
And that's what I've done here. It's a series of Quranic verses that I've selected, Hadith that I've selected, all in translation, of course. And then what I've done is I've put in quotes by inspiring Muslims from the past and the present. Not always scholars.
Yeah.
Some are poets, some are mystics, some are teachers, some are activists. And then in amongst it all, I've also put in my own actual writing is, contextualizing Ramadan, giving a bit of history of it,
Yeah.
offering tips for people to have a much more fulfilling month.
What's your, you wrote the book. What's some of your favorite quotes in the
Well,
book?
some of my favorite things, like for example, when I'm talking about contextualizing Ramadan, one of the beautiful things that I love is that according to Islamic tradition, Ramadan is a special month when revelations were bestowed on various prophets. Everybody knows that Laylatul Qadr, the Quran starts. We all know that, but I don't think many people realize that Islamically there are hadith that tell us that Ramadan is also when the gospel was revealed to Isa alayhi salam, that the Torah was revealed to Musa alayhi salam, and the scriptures to Ibrahim alayhi salam. And there's also a suggestion that the Zabur was revealed to Dawood alayhi salam as well. And so actually, Ramadan is when all the scriptures were reportedly unveiled. So it's a really, really magical month. You can see that straight away. And then of course, I've got quotes from various individuals that I really want to. One of the things I really wanted to do is, I always say to people, I have to answer to Allah, but actually first I have to answer to 4 daughters.
Okay.
And so one of the things I really tried to do is I went out on my way to make sure that there was an equal number of female voices in here from past and present, as well as male voices from past and present. Because, not just in Islamic literature, let's be blunt, in all kinds of literature, and the female voice is often absent.
Yeah.
Because, historically, across the globe, it's very much a patriarchy. And so I wanted to bring some of the wisdom of our Muslims from the past and the present into the book. And one of my absolute favorite, without a shadow of a doubt, is this Turkish female teacher called Hatis Chinan Hanim.
Okay.
And it's a very simple but profound statement. She says, if you give a poor person money, before it drops into his or her hand, it falls into God's hands.
Wow.
The first time I read that, it just completely threw me. And actually it brought me straight back to my childhood, because my aunt, my mother's twin, would often say in Bengali, which I'm not going to say on the thing, she would often say, whenever a poor person's holding out their hand, son, it's not a poor person, it's Allah that's holding out their hand.
Yeah.
And I didn't fully understand, because that's why we give, isn't it? Allah's testing us. He's testing us. He's given us the wealth that we may or may not have. And in some cases, we don't even have it, but we want to give. Yeah. And this is, of course, an essential part of Ramadan as well. So that's definitely one of my favorite. But as a British and a Bangladeshi, I also wanted to platform some, British Muslim people and some Bangladeshi voices in there as well. Yeah. And I wanted to use it as an opportunity so that people would then go and maybe take a little bit of time to find out who these individuals are. One of them, most people will know who are listening, is Muhammad Marmaduke Pictor.
Yeah.
Now, everybody knows he's the great Quran translator, one of the most
Yeah.
influential Muslims in the Western Hemisphere. But people probably don't realize that he also dabbled in poetry. And this is a wonderful, very kind of mystical type of phrase that he puts together. He says, "The worker is concealed in the workshop. Go you and seek him there, for the work has woven a net over him."
Wow.
You know, and obviously it's all about thinking about what is being said here, why is it being said, and how should we be considering our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
So but also I think for anybody reading it who knows Pictor as a translator is going to think, wait, this is not a one-dimensional individual
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
you know, and this is our heritage.
Yeah, and he was, famously, he was part of the Eastern Mosque.
Of course, we have his letters in our archives, don't we? Here,
Yeah, we do.
know,
indeed.
and that's another reason why I wanted to pick him tonight is because we have that connection with this individual, but actually, our connection is often one-dimensional. We only know him as this translator.
Yeah, it's one way. Yeah,
But we need to go further. He wrote great books of literature. He wrote poetry. He was a scholar in his own right, you know.
Yeah.
And he was probably the most influential translator of the Quran in history. When you break it right down.
Wow. Now, your book, you are taking all of the royalties and profits from this,
Yeah.
and you're donating it.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I mean, we know that this Ramadan is a very tough Ramadan, not for us going into it, but it's nothing like what's happening to the people in Gaza.
Yeah.
You know, and it's been very, very painful for all of us. And I say that knowing it doesn't compare to what the actual victims are experiencing themselves. And I wanted to do what I could, you know, and so one of the things I decided very early on when the book was released on January the 11th is that I was going to give all my royalties and all the monies that I make leading up to Ramadan
Yeah.
at least from the book to save the Children's Emergency Gaza Appeal. So that's where the money's going.
Alhamdulillah, that's really commendable.
Thank you.
In terms of the book, what do you want your readers to take away from it?
I think the fact that it's been published by Summersdale, which is a mainstream publisher, that means you could rock up in Waterstones
Yeah.
and find this. You could rock up in Blackwell's and find this.
Find this.
I'm hoping there's the obvious when it comes to the Muslim reader. I hope it inspires. I hope it strengthens, especially at a time like now when we're all hurting. I hope it offers hope, and I hope it makes clear, you know, that there is a reason for everything. You know, in that respect. And so I hope it inspires, strengthens and all that for the Muslim reader. But actually, I always, throughout the time I was compiling it, I had the non-Muslim reader in mind as well. Because I knew this is a book that would appeal to them as well. And I wanted it to appeal to them. It doesn't come across polemic. Of course, it's obvious the author is Muslim.
Yeah.
It's obvious that, you know, I believe. But I wanted to get across the essence of Islam to them.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that a non-Muslim is going to pick it up. And many have, by the way. Many of my non-Muslim friends have bought it and non-Muslim family have bought it. And I hope when they read it, you know, it presents the image of Islam that we all wish was much more a part of the mainstream.
You're working on another book, hence your trip to Spain.
Yeah.
What are you currently working on, and what can you share with us?
So I'm working on 2 books at the moment, actually. One of them is going to lead to, hopefully, it is going to lead to a writer's residency in Venice for a brief period of time, which I'm very excited about. And I'm working with a local publisher in Italy, in Venice, to write a literary Muslim guide to Venice.
Oh, really?
And for those of our listeners who aren't aware, actually Venice is home to a huge Bangladeshi Muslim community, and I'm going to meet them during Ramadan. I'm going to be doing a iftar with them, meeting them, and hopefully integrating their narratives into that story as well as looking at the historical way in which Venice has been impacted by Muslim culture, because of course the great Venetian Empire used to trade with the Ottomans and fight with the Ottomans, and you know, and anybody who's been to Venice and walked through its kind of narrow alleyways and looked up at the architecture, I don't think anybody who's done that can deny that it's very reminiscent of a North African Medina, actually. And so I'm going to kind of put all these allusions together in a nice literary guide. So that's a small book that I'm going to be working on, inshallah, in the next few months. But the big one going on in the background, which is the one you've alluded to, is a kind of follow-up to Minarets in the Mountains. And this is looking at the history of Islam when it first arrives in Europe. So obviously Minarets deals with the living breathing indigenous Islamic presence that can't be denied.
Yeah.
But largely that history is kind of part of the Ottoman legacy. I'm going right back now, with this next one. I'm going back to the beginning. Starting in places like Larnaca, which I mentioned at the top of the show, and I'm going to tell that story in a kind of connected and contextualized way that I feel up until now hasn't been done in the popular domain. So I'm hoping it's going to really help to flip the narrative that Europe's history is somehow this kind of weird Judeo-Christian thing, when of course we all know, well, I certainly know, having done the research I've done, that there could not have been a Europe without Islamic culture. There just simply couldn't have been a modern Europe at all. And I'm hoping my next book is going to categorically prove that.
Amazing. When does it land?
Hopefully early 2025.
Amazing.
So still a long way away.
Tharik Hussain, thank you so much for your time.
And thank you so much for having me on. You've always been wonderful supporters of my work. I really appreciate it, Salman.
Amazing. This brings this episode to a close. Inshallah, if you like this content, please like, follow and subscribe and share. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.